Welcome to Time to Teach with Tammy, the podcast that gives tips, advice, and suggestions to teachers by a real teacher. So sit back and enjoy. And oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. And we're back. Welcome to episode 41 entitled Evidence and Learning Activities. This is it, you guys. This is going to be the last episode within Series 6 Amazing Units by Design. There, of course, is so much more that I could say about Amazing Units, but we need to wrap it up because this has been probably the longest series so far. In my podcasting, that is. So I really think that we're coming here to an end, so we're just going to wrap it up, not go into every single detail, because like I said, there could be so much more that goes into the series. And then I also, before we get started, I do want to remind you that last episode 40, I kind of discussed the possibility of moving away from a series-based podcast, and I do think I'm going to make that move. Really, on your end, it requires nothing different. It really means probably not too much to you, except the fact that now, I'm just, instead of having a series and following the series, I'm just going to go based on topics that I feel are relevant. I mean, all of these topics are relevant, but as I explained in the last episode, when I first started podcasting in May, I planned out the whole year and I did it based on series, and I just thought to start out with, that was a really easy way to follow, because I could, kind of clump episodes together. So it was a very easy for a way for me to launch this and get started. But now that I'm really more comfortable with podcasting, and I can, I know how to do it, I know how it goes, I feel like I don't need that anymore. I don't need that support. And there's always so much. That's why I'm always fitting in those tiny topics, because those are things that I just say, oh, I really want to talk about this. And, oh, this is a pressing issue, or this is something that I experienced or tried and I want to share it. So I've been fitting those in through tiny topics and kind of breaking up the series that way. So now I think I'm ready to say I'm leaving the series format. We're just going to go on a show by show basis. There's always something going on and something relevant to speak on. And if there does come a topic that cannot be discussed in one episode, then that will become a little mini series. So that's the big news that I kind of was contemplating last week and have pretty much decided upon this week. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started then with our wins and fails for the week segment. So as I'm recording today, it is Tuesday, so it's fairly early within the school week. But I actually feel like I've had some really good wins for this week. Just things that are going really well. Like I've changed my bulletin board. It sounds really silly thinking of that as a win, but I dislike dealing with bulletin boards. I just like all of those kind of things. But we finished our math missions game, so I've been having that. I've been using my outdoor bulletin board much like a scoreboard and kind of keeping track of the team scores on display. And the parents really like to see that. They get a kick out of the changing numbers. So I had that scoreboard up, and then I've had some of their missions that they've turned in. So some of these missions are paper missions, like, find 2 ways to make whatever number, 15, illustrated. Anyway, missions like that, and I've been posting it on the board. on the bulletin board, but it's looking a little bit sad. So I thought, ooh boy, we're having family reading and math night tomorrow night. And I really don't want that sad thing to be what they see as they enter. So what I did is I had quite a few of those submissions that were in the form of take a picture and email that. That's the evidence that this mission was completed and that I can check it for, check it to see exactly how it was done. I was looking for accuracy. I was looking for creativity, effort, as much as you can get via a picture form. So I thought, I'll just print some of these out, glue them on some colored construction paper and put that up. So I took down the paper missions, put up the photos, and I must say it's looking pretty nice. So I still have the scoreboard, it still has the scores, but what's nice is now we can actually see those visual missions that, before then was not pretty evident. So I'm feeling really good about that because it was a last minute idea. I was sitting outside. We have these tables outside of the rooms in my grade area where I teach. And so I just thought, I'll sit here because I sit there sometimes and do my work because this was not teaching time. Let me specify that. And so anyway, as I was out there working and planning, I thought, I'm going to do this. That's what I'm going to do with that bulletin board. So that was a win. And it was a win-win because it was a last minute thing and I actually pulled it together. You don't know how big that is for me because I'm an idea person, but I kind of, I take my time with ideas. I think about it. I explore it. I want to learn about it. I want to see who's doing this. How are you doing? I have to process. It's a whole thing. So to actually have an idea and then execute that, make it happen same day, it's pretty amazing, you guys. So that's my big win. My big fail for the week, again, it's a short week, is that it's been probably about maybe a week or so, or maybe halfway through last week since we've been able to revisit paper towns, because maybe it's only been since Monday. This has been feeling like a long week. I don't know what's going on, but it's been a while. It's been a few days at least, possibly two to 5. Don't quote me because I obviously don't know. But the kids are wanting to do paper towns. But the thing is that right now we're into our fourth cycle of technology. So technology, when we go to technology class, it's 45 minutes of our regular in-class time. So all my workshops really get shortened to be able to do that. So we have a shortened writing workshop and math workshop. Actually, I keep reading workshop the same because that's in the morning. So I just haven't really had the time to pull the kids to do that. So I kind of foresee that I won't get to that this week because of that. Starting next week, actually starting this Friday, we will have finished the cycle of technology. So I'm hoping to pick back up on that. But kids every day are like, are we going to do paper towns today? And I'm like, it's not, let's be honest, not going to happen. Not going to happen today. So, what can I say? That's the life of a teacher, right? When there's so many things going on. So that's a fail because the kids want to continue and finish, and I don't blame them. And it's a whole lot of fun. So I don't know. We'll just see what happens. Okay, so let's go ahead and get episode 41, evidence and learning activities, started, because this is it, you guys. I'm so excited. I feel like this series has been really good as I've gone to really revisit a lot of my practices in terms of designing units, and then having to reread because a lot of the information shared within this series has been from Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe's Understanding by Design. So I've had to go back and revisit it and process those things being the information again, and just, really make sense of all of that. So it's been really good for me, and I hope that you have gotten a lot out of it too. I really do hope so. Especially if you're not familiar with backwards planning, I think this series is really something that can get you very well acquainted with that kind of planning. I really do think that is one of the best ways to be planning. Okay, so with no further ado, let's talk about evidence. Evidence and learning activities are your last parts of unit designing. So if you remember, we kind of start out with those objectives and standards and big ideas, really having the end goal in mind. So I know what we want to work towards, and then what is the big understanding that they're going to take away from this? What is that enduring understanding? And then coming up with essential questions that are going to help you to make sure that you're really creating experiences where students can truly explore and uncover those big ideas of your unit. So then from there, then we start looking at, well, what will be evidence? So before I'm even designing activities, which is kind of one of the first things that we teachers do, right? Like, oh, this is a great activity, let's do that. But really, sometimes those activities are really great, but they just don't fit in. Or, maybe they just don't really lead our learners closer to the end goal. So we really don't want to start there. So we want to look at, after those questions, okay, what is going to be the evidence that my student really got this? So I want to use my garden unit. Well, mine, it's all of our grade level pre-first. I don't own that. So basically we're in our garden unit right now because we are in bimester 4. Can you guys believe it? This is crazy. We have 5 bimesters. I don't know. The school years always fly by so fast. Time flies by. That's a whole nother topic, but I can't believe it. So bimester 4, we're in our garden unit. So when we look at evidence of some of what we're trying to establish, and maybe I should back up and tell you what we're trying to establish. Okay, so in this unit, we're basically, it's a persuasive unit. So we have that going on. So we have to kind of look at that. And then we have the big ideas that come directly from the garden itself. So really trying to develop a love and an awareness of the earth, and just being more conscious of how to take care of the earth, and really having some awareness with that relationship, the interdependence between us humans, animals, and earth, because we really rely on each other. So, we depend on each other. So it's a lot of those kinds of concepts built into the unit. So basically when we look at, okay, so what is evidence that they've done that? Well, not all of the evidence is going to be something that is tangible, something that you hold and see. We are going to get a lot of their understanding through the conversations that they're having. So a lot of this can be anecdotes. If you hear them discussing how so incredibly important it is to take care of the earth, because boy, we need that. We grow our food that way. Our animals, it's their home, and they're getting also their food there. So you're going to pick up a lot of that is going to be through their conversation. So they're really constructing their understanding through those conversations. That's really huge. But also remember, persuasive writing is part of it. So what we start seeing in the persuasive writing is that they start writing about really big issues. I mean, obviously this is very intentional on our part. We are writing this persuasive unit. It's Lucy Calkins, you guys know I'm a huge fan. So basically we kind of teach it in terms of, what are problems that you see in the classroom and problems here at school. So you keep it very narrow and close to them, because remember, especially at such an age, that's the easiest for them to access immediately, is what do I see immediately, what is in my world, and then expand into problems in the world. And then you get a lot of students really talking about, I see trash, I see graffiti. Someone said graffiti in the city. There's graffiti in the city, and that makes it not look very good. Someone talked about also, trash that was being left out in the city, and how animals can eat the trash and get sick. Someone brought up that he has seen trash in the ocean. So these are the kind of things that they start thinking about, these bigger problems, and then they start thinking of solutions and writing about it, and then doing different kinds of writing, like letter writing, doing petitions. Someone's currently writing a letter to the Mexican president, Enrique Peña Nieto. So he knows that, if you want something done, you go straight to the top. So it's a lot of really, really good stuff going on, but you can see how that writing piece, it's helping them to really demonstrate that they're understanding and kind of taking to heart the importance of, of caring for the earth. And then of course some of those big ideas are going to include things within the persuasive writing that I can write persuasively to make changes. So those are the kind of things that you're looking for when you look for evidence, and just think about all the different ways. It's not just a final summative test, although that could be involved. But just remember, evidence is really taking upon a breadth of different items, different pieces of evidence. So a collection is, as I like to think of it, you're collecting. So things that you're observing, lots of anecdotal things, but other things that you might include along the way. So I just kind of gave you a few examples of what would be evidence, but surely there are other things that you would include in a unit. Those are just a few things. So now you have decided your evidence. Okay, these are the things that I want to see. So I want to see that students can write in a persuasive manner, that students can explain a problem and provide solutions and also give reasons for it. Okay, so I want to see those kind of skills demonstrated. That's evidence to me. So then I start piecing together the actual learning activities and lesson plans. That's your last piece. We didn't start there, because if you start there, you could be starting in a place where it's not necessarily very clear where you are going. So now that I know all these things that I really want my students to get to, I can actually start thinking about what is going to affect this kind of learning. Well, okay, if I know that I want students to write in a persuasive manner, I know that I'm going to have lesson plans that are going to actually have teaching points that teach that, right? So I'm going to teach about how do you find problems in the world? How do you identify problems? How do you come up with solutions? How do you write in a way that's going to convince others? All of those become teaching points. Those become lesson plans. Planting a garden, which is something we do, and that's an activity that is going to help students. Once they're out there, they actually start to see the life that's out in a garden. You start to see that, oh yeah, look, there's butterflies out here, and you start to make the connection. Oh look, I found a roly-poly, there's a worm, there's this, there's that, and we can start to make concrete some of those ideas of like, yeah, this really is home to creatures, so we want to treat it with respect, right? And then also, we treat them with respect, and then we keep our earth healthy, and then we can get a lot back from our earth as well, like food that it's going to produce for us, the oxygen that our green plants are going to give off. So all of these things. So you're looking at those connections that are really, those lessons and activities that are going to really help to affect and get your students to those. So that's actually your very, very last step, where traditionally the way that we've always planned, we would think, that I'm going to start there. Traditionally, that's where we would start. But when we start that way, we're really starting blind, which is why we call this backwards planning. You're really planning backwards from where you would traditionally start. After you've been doing it this way, it no longer feels backwards, but if it's brand new, then yes, of course it does feel backwards. I would caution listeners that when you're doing this planning, it's best when we can integrate as much as possible. So I've only mentioned a few examples, but I'm always trying to integrate everywhere that I can. So an example of that is like the read alouds that I do. I do a read aloud every single day, but it's the same book each day of the week. So Monday through Friday, I'm reading the read aloud is the same, and it goes with our essential question. And so this week we're exploring what is healthy food. So what I want students to understand about that is that healthy food is really food that it is in its most natural, unprocessed form. So that usually is going to be food that comes straight from the earth in that form. So, like things that you can grow in a garden. And so to explore this, we're talking about, we're reading Tops and Bottoms. So it's a story, but they're planting, Hare and Bear are planting, well, Hare, if you read the book, it's actually Hare who does all the work, but planting different vegetables. So it's a good way for me to talk about how, okay, this is the kind of food that is healthy because it's in its most natural form, and it has nutrients and minerals, and it gives our body exactly what it needs. And so I'm doing that even though it's a story. It opens up a door for me to have that conversation with them. And then the other good thing that I like about that is we can continue to also look at story structure, which is something that we do look at. Something that we obviously focus on is story structure. So it's another opportunity to really think about story structure and the way a story develops, and characters, and understanding, that in a story you have characters, and then an event happens or something happens, and then something else happens, and just understanding these structures of stories, so I can kind of do a couple of things at a time. Then I always have out books. Students have books in their book boxes that they have access to every day. They read from this book, so we can reread and help to really become better readers that way. But then I also set out books. They will be books that are familiar books that were a read aloud, and then after the week that I read it, it's retired and it's put on display, and they can take it during reading time and return it. And then I'll also have other books that are more leveled readers, and it goes with our unit theme. So, we as a grade level strategically purchase leveled books and trade books that would be based on our theme, so that students have access to them. So, and then like I already mentioned in the persuasive writing unit, it's so nice because they start writing about things that are important in regards to the earth and taking care of the earth. So that ties in so nicely. The only thing that has always been a challenge for me is integrating the math. Of course, we just, we do the math concepts, and I'll often, I try to kind of tie it in and make it as thematic as I can, but that is a challenge sometimes, you know. So I'll do that a lot more. So like when we have centers, math centers going on, in the math centers, I'll try to have at least one that kind of ties into the unit. But like I said, it's not always possible. So it just becomes, you know, for me, the math part is definitely an area where I could definitely improve on. And then what I have actually recently, well, I had done this before and then kind of forgot and stopped, but I'm trying to record, make recordings of me reading a book and just taking pictures of the book, uploading those into Google Slides, and then make a recording of me reading it. So students during their reading time, one rotation, if they want to listen to reading, they can do that. And I kind of do that because the kids have been using the iPads for Raz Kids, but around this time of the year, they get kind of burned out on it. And so I thought, well, let me see what I can do so they can still be engaging with that. And then so using the iPad in that way is nice because then I can give them access to maybe higher level books and books that go with our theme that they couldn't access on their own. So I'm doing that. I have that going on. And I also created a website to go with our unit. I only have one student computer, but basically I let that student a day or student per rotation, so 2 students a day, sit and explore the website. So there's tons of things on the website right now. There's different videos on some of the topics that we're learning about, audio books. So in that way they can explore that and get learning that goes with their unit. So you can see how all of these different learning experiences and activities are really designed in a way that allows students to be able to get to right where we started with the unit design, those big goals, those objectives, those standards, all of those things. So when you can tie in as much as possible and integrate the learning, I think it just makes for really a more solid unit, and it makes a whole lot of sense. Integrating, I think, just makes a whole lot of sense. All right, you guys, so that is really it. I'm going to wrap up this episode, and with that, really wrap up the series 6, Amazing Units by Design. So in today's episode, we just really kind of explored the last part of unit designing, which is having the evidence and determining, okay, what is going to show, what will be evidence that students have met these goals. And just remember, it's not one summative test, although that could be included. You're really looking at several pieces of evidence. So thinking about how am I going to collect that evidence? What is it going to be? And it's probably going to take many different forms. It could be conversations your students are having. It could be a performance task. It could also be a summative test. So all of these different things you're taking and you're using as evidence to help you really understand that your students have indeed met those learning goals. And then of course from there, that's when we plan our lesson plans and activities, all of those learning experiences that we want our students to have, that's going to allow them to meet the end goals. So that's it, you guys. With that, it is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you've been following along in the series, if you haven't, you might want to go back, since this did cover, it was a whole series. So if you want to get the whole gist of it, it's probably good to listen to it in its entirety. But that's it. So I'm interested to know, do you do backwards planning? What is your experience? I'd love to hear from you. You can tweet to me at TamiJ, that's TAMIJ123. I will see you next time. Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Before you go, don't forget you can catch our show notes online at www.timetoteach.libsyn. That's libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook at Time to Teach.
Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Teachers for Effective Curriculum. And if you're an educator with your own podcast show, I invite you to join our brand new Facebook group, Teachers Who Podcast. Let's grow a community where we can network, problem solve, and discuss anything and everything podcast related. I'll see you there.